Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we want to talk about our Milo product and the successes that we've had, observations we've made. Hopefully you folks have seen the same thing we have. Now we have Milo planted on two different parcels. One, if you've been following along on YouTube, we call it the food plot from hell because it's so rocky, crappy ground, just really hard to farm. But the Milo does really good because Milo doesn't need a ton of nutrients to grow. It can take lesser soils, crappy ground, and it does well on this particular parcel. Second parcel we tried this year on some new ground. We followed a brassica planting from last year, and this has got really decent soil. We actually got to run the Milo north and south that we like to plant with our drill. If you don't have a drill, you can still plant Milo. You just broadcast it, but make sure you get the seed buried. We'll get into that in another video, planting techniques, weed control, and what we've learned over the last few years planting Milo. But anyway, this particular ground, we'll call it the North Lease because it's northern Menominee County. The Milo did amazing. Beautiful red seed heads. Now, the thing about this particular ground, it flooded in the spring and the Milo was really stunted, but it's coming on now. So it almost looks like we planted at two different dates. Okay, the ground where it was up higher is more red, matured quickly in late September. And there's some that are just starting to turn red, and there's a big difference. The deer have eaten the red Milo that has matured. They're on it, and they've eaten a lot of it. They're not touching the tan Milo yet. That's probably going to get hit late around Halloween, which is perfect for us. But some of the observations I made this year because of the drought on the southern lease, the food plot from hell, the crappy ground, they've eaten that 2 weeks ago because I think that it was one of the very few things that was left to eat. Our seclusion on that land is mowed right to the ground. It looks like a putting green. The fall forward sandy soil that we planted, again, same thing. It just can't keep up to the browse this year because of the drought. And the Milo was probably one of the very few things left. There's not a lot of acorns in that area, and they got on that earlier than I've ever seen. Usually they don't touch this until probably Halloween. Well, they've gotten it all eaten, which is why we like to stack food up high and food down low, because if I just planted Milo, there won't be anything to hunt over or attract the deer. So that's why we like this two-tiered food plot system. Milo up high, grains, sugar beets, rutabagas, something like that down low. Now we go to the northern lease, the northern food plot, and we had much better soil, much better growing conditions. It holds moisture better, it holds moisture longer. And we got a couple of pop-up showers in late August, September, where it might have missed the rest of the county here. But anyway, the food plot did outstanding. We had really beautiful tall Milo. It was about 3 to 3.5 feet tall, and you can see in the videos it's perfect height for these deer. You know, they don't have to stand on their hind legs. You know, I've seen a lot of people bragging about their hunting corn. Well, I've seen pictures of hunting corn, corn that's being sold at the food plot consumers. It's 7 feet off the ground. What deer can reach a 7-foot high corn? Okay, and I've seen it 6 feet off the ground. Well, our Milo is 3 to 3.5 feet. It's perfect. You can look at these videos and the deer don't have to strain to get to that Milo seed. But what we found is that planting it at a reduced rate, I believe we drilled it at about 4 pounds to the acre by the time I did all the math. It might be 5. We were shooting for 6. Now, I know a lot of folks that are trying to sell, grain sorghum, or they're saying 10 to 12 pounds an acre. In my opinion, that's way too much. Okay, because you have to have food down low. And a couple of things we've observed with this northern lease and the Milo food plot. Once the rutabagas and the sugar beets canopied, we had hardly any weed pressure. Okay, I know a lot of folks are talking this spring and summer about their weeds and their Milo. We didn't see that. The dual 2 magnum pre-emergent herbicide kept the weeds at bay, and then once those rutabagas and sugar beets that we like down low, winter peas, helped, canopied, it prevented a lot of weed growth. Now, we're going to take you out to the northern food plot, the northern lease, and we're going to walk through there. And it's amazing the amount of food that's there. So I will always have Milo on our hunting grounds going forward. But I will never plant Milo by itself because it goes quickly. In a matter of 3 weeks, you could see a half-acre food plot gone, which is a good thing if you're trying to hunt right now. This is my favorite time of year to hunt. October cold fronts, that's when I love to hunt, okay? You know, I know a lot of videos are coming. Hunt the rut this, rut that. What are those rut videos based on? Hunting where the does are. Well, where the does are going to be, where the food is. Okay, we have had pictures of mature bucks in our Milo. They really like this. They need carbohydrates this time of year. It's cold. It's upper 20s, lower 30s at night. These deer are looking for this. The other thing, and I'll note it, I'll mention this in the video. It takes pressure off our #1 food plot draw right now is this Brassica blend, our Sweet Feast Brassica blend. It's taking a lot of pressure off of that, letting that grow, or letting that continue to feed the deer longer into the season. You know, years past, this Sweet Feast on this property was wiped out by early November. We don't want that. There's plenty of food in both the Sweet Feast as well as the Milo planting. I have cereal rye in the Milo. We've got rutabagas. We've got sugar beets. Very little winter peas. They probably nipped them throughout the course of the year. We're going to switch to soybeans next year. And of course the Milo. But the other thing is it adds a bunch of cover. I was a little nervous at first at how thick this jungle was, that their deer were not going in there in September. They weren't going in October. But now I actually watched, I believe it was, I'm looking at a calendar, the 6th of October was the first night I got to sit and observe this Milo. And one doe actually walked out, started nibbling on it. I sat there again the 13th or the 14th, and there were deer everywhere in it. And now I went and checked it on, again, I'm just looking at a calendar. I believe it was I think I checked it on the 18th, and the Milo's half gone, which is fine. This is when we're trying to attract deer, okay? Because when the rut comes, you know, everything's up in the air. These deer are going to go wherever they want to go. But so anyway, again, the observations I've made are you want to get your planting ratio right with Milo, pounds per acre. And you have to have food up high, you have to have food down low. It acts as a weed suppressor, but when that Milo's all gone, they still like to go in there, and there's all that green food down low. So I'll take you out to our leases right now, and we'll look at our Milo food plots. The first night I sat on this Milo was October 6th, and this was the first deer that I got to observe actually hitting the Milo. I was a bit concerned with how thick everything was, that the deer would be very uncomfortable being inside that Milo and eating. But she was curious, and I did notice a little bit of browse on the edges of the Milo, but eventually she walked through the Milo and fed for 20 minutes. Notice how bright red the mature Milo seed head is. The second time I got to sit and look over this Milo plot was October 14th. My, what a difference. A lot of the Milo has been consumed by the deer, and they feel very comfortable inside this Milo. Notice that the Milo seed heads are at perfect height for these whitetails. They do not have to stand on their hind legs to try and reach the Milo seed head. And it tastes just like corn. I tried it, a handful of it, and I was quite surprised at how sweet it was. But as the night went on, more and more deer filtered into the Milo. And what that does is takes pressure off our brassica plot located in the background. But the deer feel very comfortable in this Milo. The Milo's at perfect height for the deer. And down below the Milo is plenty of food with rutabagas and sugar beets and cereal rye. What an amazing sit. Great to see what we created with this Milo being used. And finally, towards the last part of the evening, this beautiful 2-year-old came out and fed for 20 minutes in the Milo. Well before dark, well within shooting light. The cover and the food that this Milo provides for this whitetail proves that this is a great food plot addition. But I don't like a monoculture. I like food up high as well as food down low with rutabagas and sugar beets. All right, I'm going to just quietly walk alongside this Milo, and you can see how the tonnage in the last 10 days has been cut in half. And yes, I'm whispering because there's deer bedded within 50 yards of us, but I just wanted to sneak in here on the right wind and show you guys now they're on to the sugar beets and the rutabagas. Okay, I'm not going to talk very loud because there's deer bedded back in here and back in here. But you can see in the last 2 weeks now, they've taken this Milo down pretty good. The only, I'd say half of it's gone, 2/3 of it's gone, but the only thing that's left is what's not red. So this is still turning. And, a lot of people be thinking, well, that's no good. They've eaten it in 2 weeks. Well, here's the thing. That's all Sweet Feast, and it wraps all the way around this corner. They've taken the pressure off that. I can see, I look in here, that's sugar beets. These are all rutabagas. I'm gonna walk down this way so you can see, but this was a jungle 10 days ago. You couldn't see the ground. Well, now they've eaten probably 50% of the food on this 5/8 of an acre. But what it's done, it's taken pressure off our cereal grains as well as our brassicas, because there's rutabagas and sugar beets in here now. We've got some pretty good rutabagas in here. I grabbed a few for stew, and they're the size of a softball. And again, I apologize if I'm whispering just because there's deer around here, but this is exactly what you want. I don't want, going forward, I don't want a monoculture of just Milo, okay? And I talked about it before. The thing with all this plants in here is it's stunted and kept the weed pressure to almost zero. Now we've got some rye growing in here that we overseeded this with rye twice, but there's still a ton of food in here. And like I said, the best part about this, it's taken pressure off of that brassica. Now I've got a camera up in that tree there. I'm very curious to see what's in here. We've got another camera on the far point down here with a mock scrape. So interested to see this, but going forward, if you're gonna do Milo, this is why you add other food to it, because of right now. Another look here, you can see rutabagas are getting hit really hard. Softball size rutabagas. Yeah, just pure destruction in here, and it just started, so there's a ton of food out here. You're gonna hold the deer a lot and take pressure off our Sweet Feast blend. Yeah, it's been a pretty amazing couple of weeks observing this Milo food plot. One of the things that I know going forward, we're going to try to find more room for this. Now, I'm not going to do a monoculture. I can't stress that enough. When we're going to do Milo videos in the future, planting recommendations, we're actually going to sit down with our producer who does this Milo. Okay, this is a hybrid Milo. This is not wild game food sorghum down at Bob's Feed Mill that you can go get for like $100 a 50-pound bag. That's not what this is. Okay, we've tried that before, and I would say in the 3 years we've planted the wild game sorghum, I saw 1 year where they used it. Now this Milo that we've used, every year we've planted it, they've destroyed it. Same thing with our partners. We've got this growing down in Lower Michigan, Wisconsin, and it's been multiple years. Same result. They hit this Milo hard. I have not seen this with the grain sorghum. People say it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. This is a hybrid. I actually grabbed a handful of it out on that lease and tried it, and it tastes kind of like a sweeter corn. So the deer right now, I let the deer tell me what we need to be selling, and from all our indications and testing, both Michigan and Wisconsin, this is the strain of red Milo that we like. But again, I'm going to have some conversations with our producer on maybe we can get a little bit back our planting date up. I'd like to have them on the Milo right now, last week of October, maybe into November, but they're starting to hit it now. I think a lot of that's got to do with the drought and lack of food in the woods, lack of food around our area. So, but just be careful next year. I think you're going to see a lot of food plot seed companies come out with a red Milo, and I'm not sure what they're going to be selling. I think a lot of them are going to be selling you grain sorghum, but we will continue to sell this hybrid red Milo. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have more Milo videos in the future, planting techniques, strategies. But again, just wanted to take the camera out, show some video of deer actually like this. I know there's some people out there that say they don't like Milo. I couldn't be further from the truth. I will always have Milo in some of our food plots going forward. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in a week.